the farther you get from the garden or the orchard, that's where the quality diminishes.
We've recently asked our audience which visual cues they associate with high quality orange juice. For this test, we worked with graphic designer Alexander Paschka, who has experience designing in the orange juice category. And going into the test, he already had some ideas about what might make an orange juice look higher quality.
So when I was working on this orange juice brand, they had a lower priced orange juice that they wanted to present as a higher quality product, and looking at what isn't on the shelf. And what they didn't have was photography. There was no photography in the orange juice realm. If it was something that, looked like a Adobe stock photo. There's very nothing distinct. And then the higher end you would just get amazing splashes. And that's when I started really thinking about honesty and communication of what the ingredient is. And what I really came to was the higher fidelity, the imagery, the more people trusted that you were using honest ingredients. So that's where my head landed. So I went into a much more photographic point of view for this box of orange juice.
For the test, Joe and Alexander worked together to curate a range of images representing different approaches to orange juice, from photography and packaging to illustration, nostalgia, and more. Alexander brought some of his own assumptions into that process, but the goal was to see what visual cues people actually associate with high quality.
I had premeditated assumptions that I also wanted to see play out. But I was really interested in when curating the images is it the graphic design? Is it like this retro feeling? Is it the garden? What is authenticity? What is the value of foreign graphic design language? Like I felt like there was some influence of Italian design because obviously like Negronis are popular now and people are thinking about the color orange and in liquor and things like that. But then I live in Michigan, you live in Florida, so
Mhm.
oranges have a different connotation because they don't grow here. So I was thinking about, how does this communicate to somebody from a place that doesn't have access to oranges? And so where does that like life source communicate? Is it in, culture? Is it in location? Is it in sentimentality and nostalgia? Are you supposed to feel like a kid when you're getting orange juice, or are you supposed to feel like an adult? Those types of things. So that's kind of like what I did, and I try to create kind of like a good DJ mix of what I thought was just high quality versions of that. So you can see like, there is like the Royal Montaigne, and it's like, I don't know, is that fancy? Or is, the roadside stand fancy? Or is it the interesting graphic design of somebody that's doing like analog printmaking techniques? Or is it somebody that's just like very clear? Like there's that box that says orange. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
kind of love that too. Like, thank you for not like, saucing it up too much. Tell me what it is. So,
Yeah, I thought you did a great job. I thought it was a good mix. And some of these retro graphics, we have this really great 19th century advertising print. It's a chromolith of orange. It just says orange fruit. You could tell it's just a bad translation and a sign. It was probably from Mexico or something like that. Um, and these reminded me of that, this one too. And it was just,
I love that one from a design perspective because they
yeah.
incorporated the net, which is it was such a great graphic element where I was like, oh, that's just beautiful. I don't know,
Yeah,
just
the
beautiful.
textures, it feels right to me. They all feel nice. I mean, this one and a few others feel like, okay, this is probably not being marketed to me.
Other weird thing that I thought when seeing like a whole array of orange imagery is like, why is orange so directly correlated to the 70s?
That was a
And
weird
I was like,
thing.
every time I look at it, I think like it's gonna be disco or platform shoes or something,
Yeah.
or bell bottoms and orange juice. Like, why? Why is that a thing?
We find that every time we do one of these. Like we did a study on humanoid robots are kind of trending right now, and so much of the marketing material looks like a Stanley Kubrick film. Like they all took cues from several Kubrick films. Every time we do it, we find some weird. It's not always the 70s, even though that was kind of Kubrick's heyday, I guess. But like, it's always something. It's like, huh, why is all this subject matter 70s? It's strange.
And maybe there's something that oranges can't get away from the space
Hmm.
age because of the rise of Tang and frozen
Maybe.
food and things like that. Is maybe there's this strange correlation of like, remember when we used to go into space? Orange
Right.
juice, like strange corollaries there.
Yeah, I think that's another interesting thing with doing these tests is there's always more to track down. You could probably test anything forever, but I think the takeaways you get, even from a simple test like this one, are pretty useful and powerful for designers and marketers. So let's take a look at the actual results and talk through kind of the patterns you expected to see, because you've already shared a little bit. Your research that you were doing right after or during the pandemic, that high-end orange juice usually leans pretty heavily on realistic photography, close-up, kind of juicy pictures. And we had a
Yeah.
good mix of stuff, including that. And so, my first thought when I was starting to look at the results was that you were right.
Yeah, there was some that one that you just had with the flowers, and then the one that's like a picnic, I was not surprised at all that those were up there because they just seem like seductive. I don't know, they're just very seductive. The plant looks great. Like I want to be next to that tree. I want to be in that space. And it leads into kind of the thoughts of like having a healthy lifestyle, a healthy life. And that I think is very desirable. Some of them were surprising though. I was pretty surprised that the postcard made it up into the top, and then also the roadside stands.
So if we look at that one, that one was, yeah, it still did pretty good.
Yeah, it did pretty good. Which I was like, okay, interesting that people had kind of a nostalgia feel of like, oh, I just want what grandma had, or I want it how it used to be. And those connotations of, you didn't change it. Authenticity, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess so if we're getting into the nitty-gritty and the nuance, like that one, some of the other ones that did well, the stands, those make me think of Florida a little bit more too, and that might be part of that kind of heritage there. This just looks like a deco postcard from.
Yeah, it makes you kind of think of farmers markets and
Yep,
things like that.
yep. It's interesting you say that these were seductive. Again, if I'm thinking about it from the article that I wrote, the Garden of Eden motif, like there's a lot of sensuality to that story, especially the way that it's been represented over the eons. There's something really kind of seductive about this. That's the right word for it.
Yeah, like with the flowers, I guess in this conversation, I was just thinking is like that's one of the few ones that, I what do you do with flowers usually? It's like you want to smell them, so you want to get closer. And I'm not getting a smell, but I want it. And when you get too far into just graphic design, they start forgetting about like my eyes are happy, but I also want to I'm invited to use my nose.
Yeah.
Like thank you for the invitation for another sense.
And I can smell this photo, if you will. We have, since moving to St. Augustine, we have orange trees on the property, and like you pick the blossoms, and they just smell so citrusy. It's like it really kind of engages, all of these really kind of engage those other senses in a way that these, as well done as they are, they just don't.
Yeah, they're not asking for more than eyeballs to understand them.
Yeah. It is interesting to do these and see the contested arrays. We have the things people like, the things people agree that they don't like, and then these contested ones. It's really easy to figure out where they belong in the stack, even though they're kind of disputed, because you can just see the pattern so clearly. Like this clearly belongs over here. It's interesting to dig down and try to figure out why it ended up contested. It's clear that it kind of fits with these others.
Yeah, like I really love the one with the hand and the orange on top of
Hmm.
it. It's just so vivid, and I can understand why it was contested, but also it's like you could see how some of it you can go back and forth on And then the one that was just not the orange itself, but the interior of the orange, like the orange slices.
Hmm.
Also, like I think a really positive thing, but not necessarily high end, where maybe it's been manufactured too much because the peel is already gone, so it's more like an orange cup than
Yeah,
an
it looks
actual
like canned
orange.
peaches or the little orange cups you'd get when you were a kid or something.
Yeah, so it might have a positive reaction, but you might think like, well, I know it's probably not the best.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm not sure if this is a good orange. Maybe it's an orange that would make me happy, but I'm not going to eat it to get healthy.
right.
We ran the report through our custom AI prompts, and while there were a lot of takeaways, the analysis put one of the biggest patterns we were seeing into words really well.
The farther you get from the garden or the orchard, that's where the quality diminishes. So like the takeaway principal finding, quality is measured in distance from the tree. Every step between the orange and image, styling, illustration, branding reads like a step away from fresh. And so with that in mind, with that kind of pattern recognition observation, these start to make sense because they're taken out of the garden, right? They're back in an abstract design space where they feel removed. And I thought that was really powerful and a pretty dramatic insight.
Yeah, I thought it was really great, and there was like a recommendation in there, and I would encourage anybody to like read the full report if they took the test. So definitely go read the results of it because I thought it was pretty fascinating. That one of the things was if you're going to illustrate anything, illustrate the garden, and I was like, oh, fascinating that the context, people were willing to give up the context as long as the fruit remained real and close.
Yeah, that's a great point. So this has the leaves, the branches, and this has the orchard. Huh.
Yeah, because then I started thinking like, well, if the leaves can stay illustrated, just switch the fruit out, like what happens then? I
Right.
would like to see that test of like, switching the styles out.
Yeah, and we didn't have a whole lot of illustrations like this. I would guess from this observation, and we would have to test to confirm, but it seems reasonable to assume that if we had really good illustrated oranges that had the rest of the tree on it, they would do well.
Yeah.
It's always fascinating to see what patterns kind of emerge when we do this. And I've been challenged by some of my professors in grad school that I keep in touch with who are super modernist in their thinking and reductionary and try to get to what does the color orange mean. But to me, this is like so much more emergent than that, that it's like trying to understand or explain what spaghetti and meatballs taste to somebody by giving them an egg, some flour, and a tomato. Like you couldn't possibly experience it. But when you
Yeah.
put it all together and you ask people what they're kind of feeling that feels right to them on this question of luxury or whatever it is, high-end orange juice, and see where, in this case, 50 people, 3 dots, 150 dots, how that scores out, it just becomes so clear and so actionable. It's just so much fun to see. Like, and it's always like, oh yeah, in hindsight that makes perfect sense, but going into it,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed this. You did a great job kind of understanding that market.
Yeah, and you start to wonder even too if the strange subtle things now that I'm looking at it is like, well, maybe it's about sunlight, just because that's the association, like a big orange ball in the sky, Florida, Sunshine State, is the ones on the left have the most amount of just natural light.
Hmm.
And is that what I want to drink? I want to drink a sunset, that type of seduction of like a time and a place. I want to be there. I'm invited in to a time and a place.
Yeah, yeah, that would be an interesting follow-up too.
But sometimes, food can be so different than packaging design in other realms because you're
Mhm.
trying to communicate different types of things. But food is very aesthetic
Yeah,
because there's a smell, there's a taste, there's a touch, there's memories, and the whole thing.
So while Alexander's original hypothesis about rich realistic photography held up, the results revealed something even more specific. Perceived quality seemed to increase the closer the imagery kept us to the source: the fruit, the tree, the garden. and diminish as it became more removed and abstract. And that gives us something much more actionable than simply saying use photography. It gives designers a clearer idea of what images may actually be communicating freshness and quality. You can read the full report from this study at constellations.app. While you're there, explore how Constellations helps creative teams gain clarity, or share an idea you'd like us to explore in a future study.